Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 10 called Danny. I'm so excited that today we have our first guy on the podcast. I've been wanting to talk to so many different types of people, as diverse as possible, men and women. So this is our first male guest on Infertile AF, but he's not just any guy. He's a friend of mine that I've known for a really long time. A guy I went to high school with, a guy that Vince, my husband, played baseball with growing up. He has a heart of gold. He's amazing. And I want to thank him so much for sharing his story. So I don't want to give too much away about Danny and his wife Stacy's story, but I will say that they went through unbelievable heartbreak at a certain point trying to become parents. But there's also a triumphant ending, and they do have a boy now named Keegan, their adorable son that they both are in love with. So I want to thank both Danny and Stacy for sharing their story and their lives with you guys. It's an important story that needs to be told, and I think the male perspective on infertility really needs to be talked about a lot more. So hopefully that's a step in the right direction. So without further ado, this is Danny's infertility story. We are recording. So hi, Danny.
Hi, Allie.
How are you?
Are we Allison now?
No, Allie, of course.
Okay.
So we should tell everybody we know each other. We went to high school together, but you've known my husband, Vince, for many, many years before that. You guys played baseball together. I think his dad was your coach.
Yep.
And so we've known each other for a long time. And I have to say, I remember in high school, my friends and I all had crushes on you and your friends because you guys were like...
That's really unfair. That's unfair. That's mean.
Because I told you that we told you that later at our high school reunion, and you were like,
exactly.
What? But you
How
guys,
does that do me any good now?
But you guys were like the cool, like you wore like rocker like Metallica t-shirts and had like long hair and smoked cigarettes.
We weren't that cool.
You were like the closest thing to Guns N' Roses that we had at our high school.
Oh, we were dorks. I mean, like that's the funny thing is that was, we're individuals and we're not conformists, and then we go to a concert and we look like everybody else there.
Yeah, well, were we all? We were all kind of dorks in our own way, right?
Yeah. But yeah, we all had crushes on you guys too.
Had we known that we could have had
that's
a
what I mean.
Outcome.
It would have broke the school though. All the pretty popular girls and all the metal dorks. That would have caused a riot.
It's so funny. We did go to kind of like a John Hughes-esque. Well, we were in Chicago, which is where all his movies. But it was kind of like that. I mean, we weren't like there were cliques, but I feel like everybody was pretty much friends with everybody else.
No, we were cool. Like, that was one thing, is everybody was cool. Like we realized, I had this big chip on my shoulder when I was a kid because I was a very angry kid, and a metal was like my tribe. And then the older I got, I realized this is silly, limiting myself. Like the people I hung out with in college and especially graduate school were very, very different.
Yeah. Wait, didn't you went to college with Vince too, right?
Yeah. We ran into each other all the time. He was the rugby. I hung out with the rugby girls and he was a rugby guy. So we had a lot of the same friends.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry, we're boring people with our history.
Sorry, everyone.
Point being, we have known each other for a long time, and I always love seeing you when I come back to Chicago and the burbs. Mm-hmm. But you had reached out to me when I started this podcast, which I thought was great because I've been trying to get more guys' perspectives on here too, because men go through this too from a different perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, but it's not near. My wife is a rock star. Let me just start by saying that she's the toughest woman I know. I just want to put that out there immediately.
Yes, Stacy, your wife. We'll talk about her a little bit. Well, a lot probably as we go through this. But I just want to say that you, in your message to me, you reached out to me and you were like, if you ever want a story on fertility from a slightly different but still completely fucked up perspective, please let me know. And I was like, yes, please tell me. So let's get into it. Okay. Tell me, first of all, how did you and Stacy get together and when did you guys get married?
Now this you will relate to.
Okay.
Because you met Vince when
we were like freshman year of high school, or before that, maybe.
Same as me and Stacy. Me and Stacy met when I was a chubby little metal dork when I was 13 years old. And I went to I was friends with her sister in junior high. And I went to her sister's 8th grade graduation party. And we were sitting in the driveway, and out came this punk rock hippie goddess with blonde hair down to her waist. And I remember it absolutely vividly. And I was like, oh my God, I would never, ever get a girl like that.
Wow.
And, yeah, seriously. And then we became friends. She went to high school with us for about a year and a half, I think. And we were friends. And then she moved away. And then I moved away when I turned 17, and I went to college, and then I went to graduate school. But the thing was, we kept running into each other over the years, even though I was gone for 10 years and she was gone for 10 years. We just kept running into each other because we were out through her sister, Mandy, who's a good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And I'd come home and visit or whatever, and I'd go hang out with Mandy, and then Stacy would be around. And Stacy had been married previously. I met both of her husbands. Mm-hmm. Mike was her high school sweetheart. It didn't work out. They got divorced. They're still very cool. Mm-hmm. Her second husband died of cancer.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so she went through that whole thing, and she is a champion for it. She did above and beyond the calls of a wife, and I admire her for that. And I met him too.
What kind of cancer did he have?
He had Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oh, gosh.
He was 30 years old.
So sorry.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I mean, she's the one that had to deal with it, so it was amazing. And then, so after that happened to her out on the East Coast, she moved back to the Wood, and
the Wood.
Yeah. Oh. And then I lost my job at Louisiana State. The president of this is public knowledge, so I don't feel bad talking about it. The president of the school decided that everyone that taught English and math had to have a PhD. Uh-huh. And I have a master's, so I got let go. So
not good enough, huh?
Not good enough. Whatever.
That's fucked up.
Uh-huh. And then so I moved back, and then I walk into the local watering hole. Everyone from our hometown knows it, Lassen's Tap.
Yes.
Yeah, and her brother owns it. He still does. Uh-huh. And I walked in to go get a drink with a friend of mine, and she was behind the bar. And I was like, oh, my God, that's Stacy. And I looked at her, and I was like, do you remember me? And she was like, of course I do, you dork. And and then I got up the nerve. About a month later, I got up the nerve to ask her out. A friend of mine was like, if you don't ask her out, I'm going to punch you in the face. Uh-huh. And I asked her out, and we watched a Japanese horror movie and ate lasagna, and that was it. We've been together ever since.
It sounds pretty perfect. So,
yeah.
Did you guys
we were for each other after that.
Yeah, and she's so awesome. Yeah. I think our last reunion was at Lassen's, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. How long before you guys got married, and had you guys talked about having kids or starting a family?
Yeah, our story is so weird. We dated for years, and we moved in together after like a few months, and we knew it was the rest of it just was like, okay, when this happens, it happens. We had no plan. We had no vision of what our future was going to be like. We were just like, okay, one day these things are going to happen. And so the more important thing to us was having a kid, because Stacy always wanted to be a mother, and her previous husband had passed away. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to be a father, so we pulled the goalie. We were like, well, maybe we should think about that first. And we made a conscious decision to just, okay, well, let's just not use protection, and we'll just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
how old were you guys at this point?
God, let's see, that was 2010. So I was 35 and she was 38.
Okay.
And we were getting close to 40, and Stacy always said, I want to have a kid by 40. So it was right around that time. And all of a sudden, I mean, it literally was like a couple weeks, maybe months later, Stacy was like, I'm late, and she was all excited. And I was like, no way, there's no way this is, there's no way this is going to happen this quick. And sure enough, she went and got the test and she was pregnant.
Okay. That's
And
exciting.
yeah, I mean,
scary and all the things.
right, because we weren't married. We didn't have any, nothing was set in stone or anything.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter these days.
That was the thing, though. We didn't care. Like we went and told my mom and my dad, and they were thrilled. They didn't give a damn that we weren't married. We actually got engaged on accident.
Wait, what?
Yeah. This is a true story. We were watching the Chicago Blackhawks when they were in the playoffs in 2010, and it was, a big deal in Chicago. They hadn't won a Stanley Cup in a really long time. And we were at the bar that, we hung out at and worked at, and they had just won, and we were in a really good mood. And it wasn't they won a game, whatever. And we were hanging out with her brother, and we were driving home, and Stacy was pregnant. I think we knew at that time that she was pregnant. And we were on our way home, and we were having the when we get married talk. Like, when we get married, we're going to do this. And when we get married, we're going to do that. And I just looked at her, and I was like, do you want to get married? And she was like, well, yeah. And I was like, are we engaged? And she said, I think so. And that was it. And we pulled into the park. We pulled into our driveway, and for like a half an hour, we just sat there going, no, seriously. Like, really, this is seriously. And that's how we got engaged.
I love it.
Yeah.
Perfect. How did the pregnancy go?
All right. So this is where it gets very, very dark. I'm going to warn everybody of how terrible this is. All right. So
take a break at any time.
No, it's fine. I'm not. It's a story that I'm fine talking about because I think it's important.
Okay.
So everybody talks about, the first trimester is the scary one. Don't even tell people you're pregnant. Blah blah blah. Well, Stacy couldn't contain her excitement. Everybody knew, and the pregnancy went fine. Everything was fine. We got through the first trimester, no problem. Everything was great. And then I'll never forget, she was about 5 months and maybe a couple weeks in. And I was at school, and then the day before, she'd been having cramps. Your body go through all kinds of weird shit. And the night before, she'd been having cramps. She was still working, so she was just like, I'm going to take it easy, whatever. So I went to work, and I was teaching a class, and it was wrapping up, and I teach at Prairie State, and right down the street was St. James Hospital, which is, it's right there. And I got a security guard came into my room, and that's never good,
Oh, God.
And he handed me a note that said, your wife is at St. James Hospital. And I ran, and I jumped in my car, and I just started screaming at the top of my lungs, no, no, no. I just knew something was wrong. Okay. And I got to the hospital, and they sent me to her room, and she was in there, and she was crying, and the doctor was there, and I was just like, what's going on? And they were like, she's in labor. And they just laid it out and just said, she's in labor, she's going to have the baby is going to be alive, and the baby is going to die, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. That's what they told us. So that's how that went.
Okay. Did you know? Oh, first of all, tears just literally shot out of my eye. Like, I got full body chills, and tears just shot out of my eyes.
I reacted with anger. I didn't even cry. I was so angry. I almost grabbed the doctor and killed him. I screamed in his face. I was like, how did you not know that she was in labor? How did you not stop this? How did you not know? And I raged. I left the room, and I had to go somewhere else before I put this guy through a window.
Did you, first of all, did you know, I know it was a little girl. Did you guys know that before she went into labor at this point?
Yeah, we knew. We wanted to know the whole time. We named her. Her name was Margaret Catherine McNamara. Maggie was her. That was always going to be her name. That was always the name that we agreed on. So we had a name, and we had, things picked out and all that stuff.
Oh, gosh.
So
what went wrong? What happened?
That was the thing. They just said she's in labor. And I'm like, how how did you not stop this? How do you not know that? I mean, how? And they were like, it's early labor. And once it gets to a certain point, we can't stop it. That was that's literally what they said. They're like, we can't, once it gets to a certain point, we can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was a couple weeks longer, we might have had a healthy baby, but now we were just in this awful time period where she was born alive, and
my God.
she lived for 1 hour, and that was it.
Did she have a vaginal birth, or what?
Yeah.
Did they do a C-section? So she had to deliver.
Yeah, I saw it. I wish I didn't. It was, I mean, by the time she had Maggie, everyone was there. My mother, her mother, her brother came to visit, and then it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just standing there. I was sitting next to her with my hands over my face, just weeping.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know why, but I looked, and then I saw her, and she was moving, and,
mm-hmm.
and that was it. And then they wrapped her up and they made her comfortable. And then, Stacy held her for a minute,
mm-hmm.
and I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Yeah.
And I touched her. I did do that. And then about an hour later, that was it. That was it.
Oh my gosh. So it was just that is it the 24 week usually that they could be viable at?
Yeah.
So
and we were at 22. Yeah.
22
we were
weeks.
22. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. That's really, really sad.
Worst day of my life. Oh shit. Did I mention it was my birthday?
No.
I'm not kidding. It was my birthday. It was my 36th birthday.
Oh my gosh. How do we even begin to, what's next? I feel like I would just crawl into the bed and never come out. Like that must
get really fucking drunk. Really fucking drunk.
I love you.
Thanks. It's so fucked up. Like there's a part of this story. I've never told anybody this. And I don't even remember if Stacy remembers this. It was like this insane, cosmic, cruel joke. We walked out. They took us off the maternity ward and sent us to another room just to relax and whatever. They didn't want to rush us out of the hospital. And we walked out of our room and we had our arms around each other. And I swear to God, a woman across the hall gave birth while we were walking down the hall.
Oh God! The
door was open. And I swear to God, it was like out of a movie. It was like we were walking in slow motion. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And
I'm just like, how does that happen? Like, that's not fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, we're walking off this floor without our kid, and that woman just had one. This is bullshit, Mm-hmm. And we went to our other room. And they offered us services. They were like, do you want to go, do you want to go to these group meetings? And we were like, I don't know. I felt weird about it because it was a group for mourning parents. And I'm like, we only had a kid for an hour. I would feel weird talking to people that had a kid that lived to be 1 or 2 or 6 or whatever.
Well, and it's obviously still hard no matter what, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. We probably should have, just for ourselves, we probably should have done something, and then they were like, do you want to go to our church? And I'm like, fuck you. I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do.
Push your religion on me.
Yeah. I'm an atheist. And I was like, do you really think I want to go talk to your God right now after this bullshit? I kind of laughed when the woman said it. I was like, no, that is definitely not happening.
Yeah.
And then we just went home and we locked ourselves. I sent a text message to everybody. You can call it tacky. I don't give a shit. I sent a text message to everyone I knew, just explaining what happened, and please leave us alone. Mm-hmm. Just give us our space. And
I don't think that's tacky at all. I think that's amazing that you even had the strength to do that.
I still had the text somewhere on one of my old phones, and sometimes I used to look at it and just be like, how did I write this shit,
Yeah.
The absolute worst was talking to our families. Talking to my father was absolutely devastating. My father, he's a very tough guy. He's very Southside Irish, Chicago, but he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's a very emotional person. And I called him and we just cried. I mean, I couldn't even talk. We just wept.
Oh.
And then, that was that.
Yeah.
And we picked ourselves up and we went back to work and we did our thing.
Did
And that
Stacy
was
have
that.
to stay in the hospital, or did you guys have to leave?
No,
Or
we went home
you went
together
home? It's
after a
probably
couple
better to
days.
get home anyway,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh, I basically told work to, I was like, I'll come back when I feel like it.
Yeah, understandably.
And plus I teach, so my schedule, I can miss a class or two here or there. It doesn't
Okay.
matter. Oh God. And then, one of my students at the end of the semester gave me a present for the baby.
Oh no, because they didn't
Yeah.
know.
No, I didn't talk about it in class. And then, oh, it was so sweet. This girl, she came up and she gave me a present at the end of the semester. And she's like, oh, this is for your daughter. And I was
Oh
just like,
God.
yeah, it was horrible. It was
I would have
terrible.
gone into the car outside and just like collapsed again. Like,
Yeah, it was. And I was like, I can't take that. And she's like, why not? And I was like, oh God, I got to go through this all over again. And that was the thing, having to go through that every time someone brought it up, having to go through it over. And I know that's something that anybody that's had like a miscarriage or anything, they've been through that, having to explain, and it's terrible.
mhm.
That's so.
So what did you guys, like as a couple, how did you guys heal from that? Like, how do you even begin to heal? And
I think our wedding was a big part of it, because we had the wedding planned for June of the following year. She was born in November and died on my birthday. But we had this big party to plan,
yeah,
and because she lived all over the place, I lived all over the place. We had people flying in from all over the country, and it was a big thing to plan. And I think that really did take our minds off things for a while.
Something good to look forward to, at least.
Right. And it was a blast.
I can imagine with you two.
I think we had about 300 people. It was just a party. It was,
Yeah.
we had bands play that were friends of ours. My friend Joe cooked a pig. He stayed up all night cooking a pig on a spit.
Yeah.
And we just
Was
kegs
this
of
in
beer.
Homewood?
Yeah, it was at my sister's house.
Awesome.
Or my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law Mandy, it was at her house.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we wanted. We were like, we just want to have a party, man. We just nothing, we just wanted to be. My friend Paul did the ceremony. We didn't have a bridesmaids or anything. We had the whole wedding party stand around us in a circle. And it was just a very unifying, it's exactly what we needed to because it was such an outpouring of love and friendship and family and all that. So, and it went off without a hitch. It was just great. So I think that really helped, kind of getting us in the right headspace after all that time. Cause people are like, how do you get over it? You don't. I'm still devastated. 5 years. I remember 5 years later, the fifth, it was 2015. I literally couldn't get out of bed.
Oh,
I went to bed at like 7 o'clock that night. And it was my birthday. And I'm like, I'm just not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay here. It's horrible, But
I think you're right. You don't ever fully get over it. It just, maybe the pain gets a little bit easier over time, but it's never goes away, right?
I mean, I can obviously talk about it, because it's important, but when I talk about it, I still get very upset. I get emotional, but it's a part of my life that we have to live with. And Stacy is a badass because, she's the one that, she went, I witnessed it. It happened to her,
Well, yeah.
So
it happened to both of you in different ways, but I know what you're saying, but not to dwell on it, but just another question, like, she was pregnant. So then what happens? That's got to be so hard on your body to then you have to physically recover from that too. So she's going through the emotional and the physical. Like, how did she get through that?
That's the thing is like, she's tough as nails.
Yeah.
Like she went back to work. She went back to her life. And I just admire her to no end. I just, she looked amazing at our wedding. Yeah. And she, it was just, I don't know.
Did you guys end up having any sort of like memorial or anything for Maggie?
We had her cremated.
Yeah.
We have a box of, it looks like a book, and it's got her little beanie hat and the blanket she wore, and her ashes and her death certificate and her birth certificate. Sadly, we signed her death certificate before we even got to sign her birth certificate.
Oh God.
And there's one photo of her. Someone took a photo, and I will never look at it again. I looked at it once, and that was all I needed. Never again.
Just too hard.
Yeah, it's way too much. So
yeah. Okay, so you guys got married and had an amazing party, and then what happened?
Okay, so then, honey, I'm late, and I'm like, no, nah, not this quick, because it was I think it was in November, which is a terrible month for us, but
yeah. What day is your birthday, Dan?
November 11th.
Okay.
Veterans Day.
Vinny's the 5th.
Yeah.
You guys were close. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, we were. I remember that. We were very young for our class.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm laying in bed in our place, and she runs to the store and comes back, and like before it even hit the stick, she's giggling, jumps into bed with me, and is like, "Okay, we're pregnant," and we're laughing and laughing and laughing. And then I'm sure anybody who's had a miscarriage can understand the abject horror of what if this happens again?
Yeah.
That hit. Like we have to do everything we can to prevent that from happening again. Mm-hmm. So first thing we did was injections, these shots. I had to give her. I don't know what they did. They were some kind of hormonal thing to keep her from going into early labor. I had to give them to her every day.
Progesterone maybe, or sometimes they give human growth. I don't know.
Yeah, something. All I know is that I had to give them to her because she literally was like, I can't do this.
You're
I had
such
to
a
stab
good
my
guy.
wife in
You're
the
like, I'll do
it. I had to stab my wife in the thigh every day. That was fun. And then we were just like, we're like, you can't do anything. You're not allowed to move. You're not allowed. We stopped. We didn't have sex, to be honest. We were like, what if it breaks something loose? I mean,
you don't want to jostle anything around in there.
Everything like that we thought might be we just, we were super careful. And Stacy still wound up breaking her arm.
Oh no, what happened?
Yeah. She tripped in our bedroom and she didn't want to hurt the baby. So she put her arm out and she broke it. So yeah, she was pregnant with a broken arm. Oh, it's awful. Poor thing. Mm-hmm. So those drugs worked really, really well because she went a full 10 months.
10 months.
10 full months. And she was huge and happy.
Did you find out the sex?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And, Keegan, he's my man. He's a great kid.
Yeah.
But it was rough because they were like, okay, you're too pregnant. You get in here. We're going to induce. She didn't have the kid for 54 hours.
Oh my gosh.
They induced her 3 different times and he was just not coming out. And the only way they got her to go into labor was they were checking her and they accidentally broke her water. And that's how they into labor. And she had a healthy baby boy.
Yay.
Yep. And everything went great. It was amazing. It was wonderful.
And his name is Keegan?
Keegan, yep. He's going to be 7 in August.
Okay. He is so cute. I was telling you when we first started talking, I was stalking your Facebook page and he is such a cutie and happy little guy.
He knows. He knows he's cute. No, he's awesome. He's really cool.
Yeah.
And we couldn't be happier. We couldn't be luckier.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yep. And now we get to the
end of your story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. So we have this happy, healthy kid. We're in a new place. We're all excited. We got our family started. And then cancer. Yeah.
So how did that come about? How did you guys
Okay, so Stacy over the years had fibroids.
Yep.
And they were like, oh, that's not going to be a problem. And then they're like, but you know what? You also have these unusual pap smears, but just something to keep track of, something you want to look at. Okay. And then after Keegan was born, she went in for just a routine checkup, and they're like, yeah, you have cervical cancer.
Oh my God.
And we were just like, are you fucking kidding me? Again, like the great cosmic joke, I mean, it was just like,
can't be too happy, guys. We got to bring it back down.
Yeah. It's just like, are you fucking serious? Like, do you realize what we already been through? It's just, oh God. And they said, they're like, this is serious. We caught it in the first stage, blah, blah, blah. But if you want to guarantee that it doesn't spread and you want to guarantee you don't get sick, you're going to have a hysterectomy. Mm-hmm. And that means no more kids.
Wow.
And that's and the finality of it just didn't hit us right away. It was just like, yeah, that's it. If this happens, that's it.
Wow.
And then people are like, oh well, try adoption and we're like, we can't even pay our rent, let alone adoption fees. Are you fucking kidding? I mean, I don't mean to be shitty about it, but it's true.
Expensive. Yes.
It's very expensive, and surrogacy, we thought about all that stuff. Sure. And then we looked at Keegan and we're just like, you know what? We are the luckiest people that we had this awesome kid in that window, because once this hysterectomy happens, that's it. It's over. It's fine.
So were they saying with the cancer, like it was, you have to do this right away? I mean, there was no other option. Like, did you guys
pretty much
opinion?
Yeah, because they didn't want it to spread to her uterus and her ovaries or any of the other, because then it can spread to other parts of the body and her lymph node. They want to get to her lymph nodes or anything like that. Mm-hmm. They're like, you're lucky it's stage 1, and we're like, fuck you, lucky. Right. I mean, I understand it was lucky because we got it so quickly and took care of it so quickly. But that was the recommendation, was like, look, if you really want to guarantee you don't get sick. And that was the thing, is like, now we have this kid. We don't, we have to be there. We have to raise this child. This is the most, so any kind of cancer was just not acceptable. So,
right. It's not even about having more kids at this point. It's about life or death.
Right. Yeah. Like, seriously. I mean, cervical, I looked it up, man. Cervical cancer used to be the number 1 killer of women in this country.
Right.
Number 1. You know, that's some scary shit.
Yeah.
So we were just like, we got to just bite the bullet, and we have to accept the fact that we only have one child. But we're that's the thing. When we went in and she had the surgery done, like, I have this great picture of her smiling and flipping off the camera. Just,
okay, you have to send me that picture if it's okay with Stacy. We'll post it
Oh, sure, yeah,
that would be
I'll find it. I'm pretty sure I posted it on my Facebook page.
Okay,
but yeah, it was just like, okay, universe,
right?
Fuck you. We went through that and we went through this, but we still got a great kid out of it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we won, as far as I'm concerned.
I love that. So the surgery, she did that how soon after the diagnosis?
Couple weeks, maybe a couple months. We did have opportunities to sit down and talk about options and all that stuff. Yeah. And luckily we go to Rush Medical in Chicago, great hospital. They're amazing. And some friends of mine work there. My friend Dave, who I went to college with, he's the head perfusionist there. Okay. So when we go there, we have friends who, we can talk with. My cousin's wife, Jane, works there, and she came in and checked on Stacy, and
Oh, that's good. You got friends in high places.
Yeah, exactly. It was very cool to it's very,
yeah.
It was comforting, it was very comforting. So
did you feel like you kind of had to close the chapter of, like, was it hard to come to grips with the not having another kid, or was it like you looked at
No, it's still hard because people constantly remind us that we only have one kid,
Oh, really? Like, what do they say?
Yeah. Everywhere we go, people are like, oh, when are you going to have another one? Or, it's so much better with 2. Or like my ex brother-in-law, he has 2, they have 2 girls, and he would always be like, oh, Danny, you don't know what it's like having 2. It's so tough. And I'm like, first of all, we did have 2, asshole. You knew that. One of them died. And then second of all, we can't have another one. So shut the fuck up, stop
Yes.
saying that. And I can't say that because he's a really sweet guy. And I didn't want to insult him. But on the other hand, I wanted to slap him. Just
Right.
just, what happened. Just shut up,
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, you're just taking Keegan to the park or something. And people are like, oh, you only have the one? And I'm like, yes, I only have one kid. Thank you. Leave me alone. It's none of your business.
Well, now you can whip out the podcast and be like, listen to this. This is the whole story if you fucking know.
Yep. Listen to this. Now leave me alone. This is something you can occupy your time with rather than bothering me.
Yeah. I mean, I think people most of the time don't realize that they're, being insulting or doing harm, but I totally know what you mean. It's like, oh, you only have the one, or when's the next one? Like, those are just like questions that make you seethe.
The worst is, why didn't you have more? And I'm like, I can't be like, I can be like, we did. And do you want to hear the story? Because I guarantee you don't. Mm-hmm. Or I just say, no, we just had the one. I mean, I try to be polite, but
right.
What are you going to say?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So how are things these days? How is life with an almost 7-year-old boy?
Every day's an adventure.
Yeah. Does he go to school in Homewood?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. He goes to Willow. I went there as a child.
That's so cool.
It is cool. It's so weird. When I moved away at 17, mm-hmm. I always knew I'd come back. I just didn't know when or how or whatever. But if you would have told me that I was going to marry Stacy Reicherman, the beautiful punk rock hippie, and have a 7-year-old kid that goes to Willow, I mean, it just blows my mind. It's such a weird life,
Yeah. It's so great.
It's a happy life, though.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. So.
Well, it's so great. And I'm glad that you guys are doing well and your boy is incredible. And I think we're going to come back this summer at some point, or I know we are for sure. So hopefully we can see you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I want to thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I'm sorry for all the shit that you guys went through. But you're right. Your wife is a rock star and you are too. And I know that a lot of people will get a lot out of this. So thank you for taking the time.
I hope so. You're doing good work. I'm not going to say the Lord's work, and you know why.
Please don't. Hey again. So that was Danny. I want to say thanks again to him and Stacy, and I will see you guys in the wood, hopefully this summer. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast in iTunes or wherever you listen and pass it around to all your peeps. And I will talk to you again soon. Thanks.